trying to think of a creative way to jump in here. Maybe if
jump
I feel
scare.
like I should have started in the closet, and then I could have come in through the closet. But then that's not even on camera, so it wouldn't have even made sense.
What?
And now I'm gonna do a dissolve where like I'm here, and then I'm gonna dissolve. Wait, I'll be here.
Okay.
Wait, I'll be back here. I'm back here, and then I'm gonna like disappear, and then I'll slowly fade up, and I'll appear in this. I'll appear in the chair slowly.
Okay.
See how I was back there, and then I disappeared, and then I became here. It's like I teleported.
It's very spooky.
Did you like it?
I did.
How did that feel in real time watching me teleport from there to here?
Mystified. My mind was boggled.
Were you stupefied?
I was hornswoggled.
Do you know that Disturbed song Stupefy? It's a good meme.
I know.
You're already thinking of Drowning Pool. I already know that you're thinking of the Drowning Pool song. You'll let the bodies hit the floor.
No. It's good. Corn.
Corn? That's not Disturbed.
Limp Bizkit.
I'll show you a Limp Bizkit.
No, I'd rather not.
It's my personality.
Oh.
I have the personality of a Limp Bizkit.
Wow, speaking of Limp Bizkits.
Oh, Velma.
Yeah.
This is my story, told my way. Yankees!
Now, allow me to transport you into the horrifying nightmare that is modern entertainment.
Yeah, so we watched Velma.
We did.
I feel like there's even more to say about the culture surrounding this show than there is to actually say about the show.
I would agree.
Because it should have been something that no one really watched and no one really talked about, and then it just came and went, and we were the only people that watched it.
It should have been a fart in the wind.
It should have been a fart in the wind. They kind of blew its load on trailers, I guess, and they fucked up the trailer so bad that they just set themselves up for absolute colossal failure.
They really, poured gasoline into the dumpster and jumped in.
Yeah, because I think to an extent, maybe they were counting on some hate watching and some memeing, and I think they thought...
probably.
I think with those trailers, they thought they were going to take the marketing approach that a lot of things get now, which is... They wanted the Tucker Carlson segment, They wanted the hate segment about it so that they could have their triumphant, oh, you can't take us down, Yeah. They wanted the right-wing reactionaries. And because it's coming off the heels of that last Scooby-Doo OVA movie where it had Velma being gay. Yeah. And that became a huge controversy, And
I mean,
it came out of fucking completely
M&Ms
nowhere.
And everything. It just makes sense.
That last Velma controversy came out of nowhere. It was for a direct-to-video movie. All those movies are direct-to-video. No one fucking watches them. No one cares.
Nobody.
They're not even made.
Them.
It's one of those where it's no one. I could never figure out the audience for it because I got to get into Scooby-Doo Return to Zombie Island because that's going to be one of my comparisons to Velma because Scooby-Doo Return to Zombie Island is a terrible fucking movie. It's so bad, and it's it comes out of nowhere, and it's who is this for? Because it's a return to Zombie Island. So it's very clearly meant for fans of Zombie Island.
It's meant for us.
But the humor is it has a bit of satirical, self-aware darkness to it, but it's not funny. But then it still has the vibe and overall pacing of Scooby-Doo for babies. But babies don't care about Zombie Island, the movie. And so it's is this meant to appeal to millennial parents buying their kid a Scooby-Doo DVD?
I think so.
I think that's maybe the appeal. It's the
same premise as when your grandma goes to the store and Finding Nemo is popular, and she's looking at the DVD titles and she's scrolling through and she sees a cover with a fish on it, but it's Finding Jesus, and she's like, oh yeah, my grandson loves this movie, and she buys it because it's $3.
Yeah. and there's a bit of that with people's commentary about Velma, which is, that was dog shit, it was horse shit, and people didn't understand where it was coming from and who it was for,
Right.
And I think what you can look at is, the last time people talked about Scooby-Doo in a big way, like they did an HBO release, they did a big movie in theaters, you know, and no one fucking watched it, no one cared, you know, and that was their last time they tried to like do a big thing for kids, you know, like they've been going on and off with kids shows with Scooby-Doo for a while. Like, there's always been a Scooby-Doo show airing, pretty much, until, like, the last 5 years or so. Yeah. And no one cares about them. They always suck. No one watches it. Sometimes the fans don't care about some of them, like that Mystery Incorporated people watched.
But, and, like, modern kids don't really care about, like, kids, like, 7, 5... Yeah. Kids don't care about Scooby-Doo.
Because Scooby-Doo is more about the brand and the mascot than it is about the actual show. You know, it kind of always has been. Like, you had a Scooby-Doo... pillow as a kid, and it's like you didn't even like Scooby-Doo.
I did like Scooby-Doo.
Well,
I did.
Okay, so you did actually. I
liked Scooby-Doo.
But did you like the show, the original show? Okay, so you did. I thought you said you did.
Victor had a dog in it.
Yeah, it had a dog in it.
Yeah,
yes.
I like.
But what about when you got a little older, like past being a little kid, you know, into like 10, 11, you know, were you still into it? Were you watching What's New Scooby-Doo and like?
Not unironically.
Exactly. He started to watch it ironically, you know? And like, my memories of Scooby-Doo as a kid is like, I didn't like the original show at all, you know, when I was a little kid. Like, I thought it was dumb. I didn't like Scooby. He's gangly and weird, and he's not a cute dog.
He's not
But
cute.
I really liked Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, and those direct-to-video movies were really good, you know? And those are the highlight of the franchise, from my perspective. Like, those are the best it's ever been in terms of, like, trying to earnestly be Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island is actually a good movie, you know?
Yeah.
It treats the source material well, and it does logical things with the characters. I did like a pup named Scooby-Doo as a kid. I loved a pup named Scooby-Doo.
I liked a pup named Scooby-Doo a lot more than the old one, for sure.
because it's got a more modern sensibility to it. Yeah, a baby. And yeah, it's for babies. Well, I mean, the original was made for fucking babies, but it's
those were old babies.
Yeah, it just doesn't have enough of a modern sensibility about it to be tolerable anyway, because it's so old and slapstick and like. It's dated, you know?
It's golden age cartoon, you know? It's not the same.
It's not very funny, and it's not very interesting. So
and it has a laugh track.
Yeah.
Fuck laugh tracks.
It's dated. No one likes it. I didn't like it as a kid, you know? I like Scooby-Doo and Zombie Island and some of those things, but, like, even those aren't great. I mean, What's New Scooby-Doo, I fucking hated as a kid. Everyone likes the opening of What's New Scooby-Doo, but, like, I thought What's New Scooby-Doo was terrible. Most of the properties, all the shows are usually pretty bad, you know? They're coming at this because the response with Velma is very much like, this is so bad, how could they do this to Scooby-Doo? And it's like, well, were you watching Scooby-Doo?
Right,
like, did you care all this time?
Were you high stakes invested in Scooby-Doo?
Like, because I watched a couple of those recent movies. There's a lot of them if you look it up. There's a lot of those fucking recent direct-to-video movies. They're bad. They're really bad.
Courage the Cowardly Dog crossover movie.
Yeah, that was pretty bad too, wasn't it?
Great.
Yeah, that was not good. Because the humor is weird. And, like, they try to do this thing where they're throwing back to the old cartoon with the very, like, ho 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 humor and like slapstick, but like it doesn't work, and it just feels cynical in a weird way, and then it's like self-referential but stupid. It's just like, what the fuck is this? This sucks.
It loses its identity in trying to pander to everybody.
Yeah, it's trying to do like a tongue-in-cheek, like, oh, wasn't the old thing so silly, and they're acting that way now, and isn't it like goofy and weird?
It is very
and they always
silly.
harp on like Fred wants to fuck the mystery machine. That's the kind of stuff where it's like, that's for millennial adults to be like taking the piss out of Scooby-Doo, but then it's so like weird and cynical and just like, what? It's just not. It's not funny.
Super
you know,
overdone.
It's overdone.
Every iteration did that. And it's
totally
like,
flat.
We get it.
There's nothing going on with the characters or anything, you know. So it's just like, well, this just sucks for everyone because it's a bad product for kids because it's got all this stupid self-referential shit, and then it's a bad product for adults because it's not fucking funny, and it sucks, and it's lame, and it's poorly made, and there's nothing like redeeming about those direct-to-video Scooby-Doo movies, at least from what we've seen. You know, maybe there's some good stuff out there. The modern ones. The old ones were at least making an earnest effort to make a good Scooby-Doo product.
And the Ghoul School is still...
exactly. Those are the ones that are heralded as classics, at least from our time, you know. Zombie Island, Ghoul School.
That's how you knew you were at least a little bit of a lesbian.
Yeah, but those were things that tried to take Scooby-Doo and do something interesting with the plot and characters, you know. and have some intrigue there. But anyways, so yeah, the overall cultural commentary around Velma is like all of a sudden everyone cares, and they also think that this is terrible,
and everyone was real mad.
And they make it out like it's uniquely bad in some way, and it just isn't. It's not uniquely bad in any way compared to the landscape of what it's being released against. And that's kind of like, so I warmed us up for this by playing a trailer for Q-Force. And like there's this new show is in the genre of adult animation with a queer lean to it, I would say, is kind of the genre it falls into. And if you look at other adult animated products with a queer slant to them, they're usually pretty fucking bad. Like most modern adult animation in the comedy lane in general is pretty fucking bad. And if you look at something like Q-Force, like this is the demographic they're trying to hit, you know, like they're targeting modern Twitter using female queer people of color. Like that's the demographic they're trying to hit, you know.
I would say Queer Force doesn't target a female audience as much.
I'm not saying they're trying to target the same. I'm just saying that's what Velma's trying to go for. It's trying to hit that demographic and like really targeting that demographic and saying fuck you to kind of
everybody
like
else.
It's not trying to have the mass appeal.
It isn't pandering to everybody.
Yeah, it's not pandering to everybody. It's pandering to a very young, modern, queer audience. Yeah. And that's fine, you know? And it's like, and those are the people that are gonna be more interested in Scooby-Doo, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Like, young, straight, white men are not...
They don't care.
They don't care about Scooby-Doo, you know? They don't care. And they're not gonna watch it. And they've been putting out that stuff, you know? They've been trying to go in the lane of staying true to Scooby-Doo, and it's not working. So, like, what do you want them to do, you know? This isn't totally out of left field, is what I'm trying to say. Like, people act so shocked that this happened, and it's like, this is the logical next thing, you know? It's a robot chicken sketch, but like there's so many cringy robot chicken sketches of Scooby-Doo but raunchy, and you know, and in terms of like kids don't care about Scooby-Doo anymore. They've got plenty of other stuff to watch. Yeah. Why do another kids Scooby-Doo show? It's just gonna fall under the radar, especially on streaming. No one's gonna watch it. How do you make a statement these days? It's fucking impossible. And then like probably the most interested Scooby-Doo is probably people looking for fucking porn of Velma, honestly. They probably were trying to SEO optimize, and we're like, what are people looking for Scooby-Doo related? It's porn of Velma. I know, as a consumer of porn of Velma. in my past, you know, Velma cosplay, Velma, you know.
I wasn't gonna out you as a coomer, but there you go.
Yeah, you know, some better than others, but you know. I'm a Velma appreciating young gentleman. Velma has always been the best. But, you know, so they're like, what are people actually interested in? What is the character that relates to millennials? It's Velma, you know, and not so much the Scooby-Doo. And so they're like, oh, let's do a show for young adults and teens. You always got to remember the teen demographic, and that this is probably appealing most to them, you know?
Or trying to, at least,
yeah. Young adults and teens who
it's edgy,
will,
you know?
Yeah, it's very edgy. It's got very edgy, goofy humor.
The first episode
you know?
especially has, like, lots of gore, like...
Yeah. And it does kind of come out the gate with its weakest elements.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we'll get into over the course of this review or discussion as you'll have it, is that I do think it gets a lot better as it goes along.
Yes.
And I understand a lot of the knee-jerk reaction to the show. I just think it was so overblown.
And it shoots itself in the foot with the trailer. Because start of the trailer's bad. The trailer is not good.
And the trailer reactions I thought were fine. Everyone shooting out the trailer, and it was valid. You know, it was a terrible trailer.
Bad. And oftentimes... I don't know what it is about this industry. They don't know how to cut trailers. Ever. You can make the best movie in the world and cut the fucking dog shittiest trailer, and no one's going to want to watch it. They're going to shit on it. That's definitely a big part of how they got off to the wrong foot with Velma.
Because they tried to emphasize too much the shock value and the raunchy, edgy jokes. And it's just like, it didn't hit the appeals that the show ended up having for us. You know, it's just like those are the weakest elements of the show. Those are the weakest
parts of the show, and they're the ones they put forward the hardest.
And I think it might have been trying to lean into that, let's get some outrage surrounding it. So and it worked. It gave it a huge release. But the problem with that is that everyone hate watches the beginning and then it falls off to the end. So I don't know what the numbers are looking like now for like the finale.
Yeah.
That's what really matters. It's like who finished it, you know?
Yep. Besides us.
Yeah. And, so I understand the shock value that people had of like, oh, this is so bad, but I don't get where it was uniquely bad in any way compared to the landscape of other shows in this demographic that are so fucking bad, you know,
like
I
unwatchable.
would never watch, like the Prince and all that shit.
Yeah,
like these are the shows that it's going, like this is the sense of humor it's working off of. It's like it's in that genre, and like for that genre, it's not doing anything uniquely bad, you know.
Not at all.
Like you can't be mad at this more than you're mad at all of that, and I'm way more mad at all that.
Yeah, intolerable shows compared to Velma. Brickleberry, fucking any of that shit. I can't. I couldn't sit down and watch a whole episode of that.
And there's certain things where I feel like people can misunderstand and misrepresent what the show is going for, especially with moments like there's the moment in the trailer where they have Norville, who's Shaggy, and then they make the comment about like, I would never smoke weed, blink, blink, and it's like a really poorly delivered thing, and it's like, I understand, and I had a feeling that what they were going for was, because this is an origin story of the characters of Scooby-Doo, then wouldn't it be funny if Shaggy started out not like how he is at all, like he's super straight edge, and then he becomes a stoner, and like that's very clearly where the show is going, and people didn't get that, and so it's like, well, you made a joke that's predicated on having an assumption about where the show is going to go that they don't,
and you don't give any clear
for most
indication.
People, and then they linger on it in this weird way, and it's just like it just rubbed everyone the wrong way. Versus like at the end of the show, it's so clear that's where they're going with it. You know, is that like this is the origin story? Scooby's not here.
Obvious.
The characters are all terrible, and a lot of the commentary on the early thing was like, oh, none of these characters are likable. They're all assholes. Like that's comedy. Everyone's supposed to be unlikable.
Have you seen
and then
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? Yeah.
It's like
people love that show.
Characters can't grow if they don't start off, you know, shitty. And like in a comedy, you usually want to go for shitty people doing shitty things, and then they
BoJack Horseman.
You know, it leads to bad situations, and then over time they learn and grow, which does happen over the course of even season 1. You know, it's like they do address certain things. They do, they end up with a little bit of a reset at the end, but that's
But BoJack is often the same.
Exactly.
And everybody loves BoJack.
Most should. I mean, not putting this on the level of BoJack at all.
Not saying it's the same, but they do a similar trope, and BoJack has cut a lot of slack for that because it's great. BoJack is great. It's much better than Velma. Please don't get me wrong. But it's, if it's acceptable there, I think it's fair to give a little leeway here too.
I guess it's just there's a lot of elements where it's like if people were coming at it with a charitable lens, they would have interpreted it in a different way, but everyone came at it with such an incredibly uncharitable perspective that it just didn't even get to, like, there was no constructive commentary or unique commentary or anyone saying anything interesting.
Everyone shitting directly down its throat.
It was just pointing out all the most obvious things, all the most obvious problems, and it's just like, well, don't you think like maybe that they are a little bit aware of what they're writing? Like they're not totally retarded when they wrote this, and it doesn't seem like a show where they're half-assing and putting no effort in, with the animation and the aesthetics and everything.
It's like the animation is really quite good. It's the coloring, the color work is really nice. The characters are really expressive. There's like a lot of movement going on in some scenes. Clearly somebody cared a lot. Yeah. Especially in the animation.
And that's what makes me sad about the show, is that I do think the creators and everyone working on it gave a shit, and they I do think they care about Scooby-Doo, and I do think they put effort in.
I don't think it's soulless or cynical like a lot of people like to say it is. I feel like there's a lot of heart in it.
It's just not always funny, It's just like, and when it's not funny, it's pretty cringe and really not funny. Like, I want to acknowledge that like there are jokes that just do not fucking land in this show.
There's some groaners,
and are pretty bad. There's some hard groaners, especially towards the beginning.
The first
like, oh god,
3 episodes. The first episode's the worst. The pilot, by far the worst episode.
Yeah. And I think there's a bit of a main character dilemma with people and their perception of what the show is going for, because Velma as a character is meant to be unlikable, and you are not meant to think like she is correct and the good guy, Right. And I think a lot of people
take her... She's an unreliable narrator, and she's shitty.
Yeah, in the beginning, people are thinking that like the show's commentary is saying like, oh, what Velma is saying is correct. Right. And it's like, the show isn't saying that. No. Velma is supposed to be not a good person, and it's about her not being a good person, and she's punished for not being a good person. It's not about her winning, Yeah. She's the worst character. She's the worst person in the show.
Absolutely.
And the show takes the piss out of her all the time. So it's like, if you think that the show is trying to say that Velma is is the righteous person here. Like when it comes to the trial of Fred, that was a big thing that everyone fucking bitched about, even though it's so stupid.
Yeah.
Because it takes a big dig at white boys and like Velma's whole like, oh, but he's a straight white male and bullshit. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of cringe. It's also true, but also like Velma's not the good guy here, you know? In the next episode, she's foiled. Like,
yeah, it's like she's wrong. But you know that, right?
She's wrong. That's the point.
That's the point.
That's why it's funny, because she's wrong.
Right, because she's so self-assured and so smug about it, and then she's wrong, and she's, wrong multiple times throughout the whole show.
And she doesn't understand why everyone isn't on her side about, like, but he's a white guy, of course, like, fuck him. Fuck him, he's a piece of shit.
I kind of wonder if part of the knee-jerk negativity for this show is, like, because so many people have kind of fetishized Velma. And when they see her in this really negative light, they kind of go, no.
Like, that was a funny thing where it's like, yeah, there is a fetishization of Velma, and they made a very unattractive Velma, like, on purpose. She's not supposed to be hot. You're not supposed to like her. You're not supposed to want to fuck her.
It's commented on constantly.
Yeah, that is the commentary, is that Velma is not, like, is not an attractive, likable person.
Daphne is hot. They are constantly acknowledging that she is hot, and they're constantly acknowledging that Velma is not hot.
And it's almost a unique and fun and true modern commentary of, like, she has an entitlement about being, like, disadvantaged, and she uses that to then be an asshole to everyone around her.
Yeah.
Which is something that I imagine, like, most people these days would, even on the conservative side, would probably agree with that commentary of, like, oh, young people get this persecution complex and they turn into assholes, and they think that they're morally right about everything, even though they turn around and they fucking are pieces of shit to everyone in their life. Like, I think that's commentary that most people would agree with, is that Velma is not the good guy here, And
the thing is, like, despite playing the victim and, like, constantly harping on the fact that, like, everyone shits on her for not being attractive, she still falls into the really stereotypical trappings of, like, wanting the hot guy, being in love with Fred, even though he's an asshole. Like, all the things that everybody does that she would persecute other people for doing. She does it too.
Yeah, she's the fake feminist,
Yeah.
And that's, like, I don't understand where people aren't seeing that.
Because they didn't watch far enough into the show to see it.
Yeah, or they just, were coming at it from such a fucking pessimistic perspective.
If you're so far into the hate hole that you're just like, it doesn't matter.
And it's like, it's like they are taking the piss out of SJW shit, and everyone should be able to.
But, like, they do that, but they also make very real, salient points. Yeah. It's like, they do, because they're in a later episode, after fake feminist Velma makes Fred read, like, feminist literature. That's my
favorite joke in the whole thing.
It's so good.
Is that when Fred gets out of jail, because they find out that the killer's only going after hot girls. And so they need someone to make a list of who the hottest girls are. So they go to Fred because he's got the best perspective, the most superficial, so he can give the best list of who all the hot girls are. And then once they're done doing that, Velma gives him a book on feminist theory. And this changes his entire worldview. It opens his eyes. It's hilarious that it just takes one book on feminist theory to completely change his worldview, It's a funny gag because he was the dumbest, most vain person, and then he's like, "I'm a feminist now," and yes, he falls in love with Velma because he's attracted to her brain and not her body. Thus, reinforcing how unattractive Velma is, and that he becomes obsessed with her as a powerful woman, And it goes funny places with that. And
the joke is
Fred
a good
gets
joke.
the best character arc of anyone in the show, even though he's the white boy that everyone shits on, But he's like the most fun character by the end. Because it goes fun places. I guess we should talk about the plot of what happens a little bit before we get into more of the character deconstruction. But,
do we have time?
Let me see.
Yeah, let's make sure the memory card's still rolling.
Well, I've got another memory card to pop in.
Okay.
We got 17 minutes before this memory card's over, and then I'll put a new one in. I was just saying how far we can get on one memory card.
Okay, cool.
Because we're recording this right after our Gretzko video. Go check that one out. Literally right after. But oh my god, the lighting changed so much. What happened?
Oh, the sun went down.
Oh, the sun went down. That's right. And so the spooky lights came on.
This is just what our house looks like normally, yeah.
This is our normal spooky house.
Yeah.
Our ordinary spooky atmosphere.
This is how we go about our day. I cook with this lighting.
Yeah.
Every night.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the plot.
Yeah. Well, I guess brief discussion of the new characters. What are they like, you know? Because this is framed from the very beginning. It's immediately, this is the framing of the show. This is an origin story for how the crew gets started. And it stays true to that. It's heading in that direction. So I think, logically, the end of this show will be them getting Scooby-Doo. I don't know how no one has thought about this, it seems like, in the commentary world, but, like, yeah, they don't have Scooby, and eventually they will get Scooby. You know, that seems to be where it's going. Eventually, Shaggy will become, like, Norville will become Shaggy and will be a stoner. They hint at this very strongly at the end of season 1.
Yeah.
But it starts off with, you know, you got Velma. She's, you know, got the whole persecution complex. She's the ultimate, fake feminist. And her whole deal is that her mom disappeared a couple years ago, and it's become her entire life is trying to figure out what happened to her mom. But when she pursues it, she has hallucinations that cause her to break down, which this was my own unshared ability. I didn't think they were ever going to, like, really logically address, like, what the fuck was going on with that. I thought it was just something stupid that was happening and maybe not literal, you know?
Right.
And then it was literal, and then they get to it at the end. I'm like, oh!
They loop it in. It loops.
Oh, because they actually did have a plan for the plot, and it came because it's like, you know, at the beginning you don't know.
Wow.
You don't know that the plot. That was another thing with the first episode, is that you don't know that it's going anywhere, and so it's like you're just like, what the fuck is happening? We don't know if it's going to be episodic or whatever. It does have a very strict overarching plot over the course of the first season that does come full circle in satisfying ways with a decent mystery. You know, it is a fun mystery story. So yeah, her mom's missing. Her whole mission in life is to find her mom. And she will fucking steamroll over everything to get that done. She doesn't give a fuck about anything else.
Yes.
Then you have Daphne, who is Velma's childhood friend, but she became a pretty girl, hanging out with all the pretty girls. She is explicitly Asian, but she has 2 lesbian moms that adopted her that are both cops. Which is pretty. It does get kind of funny with the lesbian cop moms.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
That she has 2 moms that are both cops and are lesbians, and they took her in. But she's a popular girl, so she doesn't get along with Velma anymore. They were childhood friends. Then you got Fred, who's the rich white boy. His parents are ridiculously rich, and he's just fucking in his own world of being, you know, popular, rich
boy.
He is, and he's also just absolutely infantilized to his core, which is another fun element of his character, is the intense infantilization, which directly relates, like, it all plays into the plot, which I like. Like, it all comes together with the storyline, and this is where I think the show actually shines in the end, is that all of these elements, everything that has to do with their personality, all plays into the plot and where it ends up going. And then there's Norville, who is Shaggy. He is super straight edge, super on it, education focused, and he's obsessed with Velma. He's in his unrequited love, and she doesn't give half of a flying fuck about him the rest of the show. She treats him like absolute shit.
She's a shitty friend.
Yeah, and he's the ultimate friend zone cuck. Nice boy. Somewhat relatable, but I didn't really act like Norville at all.
No.
But you know, relatability in high school for sure. Yeah, so he gets shit on all the time, and he's always bending over backwards to help Velma, and he can't help it. And that's our cast.
Indeed.
That's the new direction of these characters. You know, it's so wildly different from the absolute lack of personality they had in the original show. It just drives me crazy.
It sounds like Scooby-Doo's gone woke.
It sounds like Scooby-Doo has gone woke.
Woke Scooby?
Acknowledging
Velma?
Literally the things that people talk about and are going on in modern society, that's woke.
That's woke.
It has to be about nothing. It has to be about absolutely nothing. There's a guy in a suit, and he's running around doing slapstick shenanigans. We want that. Just a million episodes forever. That's all we want.
See, that's not woke.
It's still there. Go watch it. You know, you can see fall down the stairs. Bang! Ching chong. It's all out there. You got Don Knotts, you know.
Don Knotts!
I don't know who the fuck Don Knotts is. Whatever. I don't know. He's a guy in Scooby-Doo. He's a guest in Scooby-Doo, you know. Don Knotts. He's there.
You know Tom.
You got, Sonny and Cher? They were in an episode.
The Beatles were in an episode, right?
Beatles.
Or was it the Monkees?
Probably the Monkees.
Maybe it was both.
You know, They're all there.
Kiss was in an episode?
Kiss was in an episode?
That's a newer one.
Oh, the newer one. Yeah. That was one of the new movies. Yeah. How is Kiss still getting in cartoon? What is wrong with the world?
Well, yeah, would you rather go watch the Scooby movie with Kiss in it?
Just watch one of the Kiss Scooby movies. That's probably a lot better. Write an analysis of that.
Actually, you know what, Tucker Carlson, you would like that more.
Scooby-Doo fell off. Go watch Scooby-Doo meets Kiss. That's when it was good. Oh yeah, because they have a whole side. This is another one of the things I had seen, which is that they have a Scooby-Doo and Guess Who is what the show's called.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And they have a guest every episode.
The crazy robot's back.
Got any cheese?
And I saw one of the episodes. I can't remember who was the guest on it, but it was
Wanda
just
Sykes one?
so bad. So bad. It's hilarious that Wanda Sykes is even enough of a celebrity. All she does is voice characters and things, really. But,
that's all you need.
And she's cool and Curb Your Enthusiasm, and she's got a funny voice, but, you know. All she
She's
does
fine.
is
It's just
voice
not
act.
a good episode.
Yeah.
It's just not a good show. Sorry, Wanda, if you're watching.
Scooby-Doo and Guess Who? It's Tekashi 6ix9ine.
Jesus Christ.
Tekashi! What are you doing with all that cocaine? Ruby's got the spliffy. Scooby-Doo in 100 gags.
Scooby-Doo. Actually, I feel
they come out on stage and they're just bashing the metal plates.
Actually, to the youth.
I keep getting the TikToks where it's a 100 Gex show and they just have all these metal plates and they're just bashing on them at the start of the song. I don't listen to 100 Gex. I don't know what they're doing, but the young people love it. The young people love it. There's 100 Gex. They love Gex.
How do they fit 100 Gexes on the stage?
I don't know. It requires a lot of N64s, I imagine.
I would imagine. It's a lot of CRTs on one stage, man.
I got a piece, or we'll take an intermission. I'll go get the other memory card before we run over. Yeah, you're going to play 100 Gex.
Yeah.
All right. Intermission.
All right, we're back. I just finished my 69th Gex, so Gex. Gex.
Well, you're still got a little ways to go before you get to 100.
Yeah,
so
we've got time.
Anyways, the Gex are on the loose. All right, back to Velma. So I guess there's kind of a storyline for each character throughout the season if we want to go in broad strokes. I don't think we need to talk about it like episode by episode.
Nah.
But broad strokes, Shaggy's storyline is learning to, well, he's supposed to be learning to get over Velma and learning to kind of be his own person.
Allegedly.
And he gets a girlfriend. That's one of the big things in the show, but he kind of ends up fucking that all up in the end, which is, you know, it's a comedic tragedy in the way that all the characters grow and then they ungrow.
Just like real life.
So, yeah. So, Shaggy's arc is that he's trying to get over Velma and accept his position that she doesn't give a fuck about him and she's a fake friend. Daphne's plot is that she's finding out the origins of her parents and who she really is, and also coming to terms with being in love with Velma, as it would transpire.
Indeed.
Velma's arc is finding her mom and getting over her hallucination trauma, learning to be less of a shithead to everyone around her, hopefully, and also being in love with Daphne. Maybe. Figuring out feelings for Daphne. And then Fred's arc is kind of like learning to be a human being.
Learning to exist.
Like, kind of being introduced to a bit of responsibility and consequences. Would you say that's the encapsulation of everyone's plot arcs over the course of the season?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So, shenanigans. I'm trying to get through the plot in a way where I don't have to recap the whole entire thing. But like, I feel like people didn't fucking watch the show, so we kind of have to walk them through it.
Yeah, it's a fine
I have to go
line.
under the assumption that no one watched the show.
Definitely.
Yeah, so over the course of the season, you know, it's mostly involved in Velma's plot of finding her mom. We learn various elements of the history of kind of the town and the dynamics of the people there. There's mole people living in the caves.
They're not literally mole people.
There's people who
They're
live in
like
the mines.
jewel thieves.
Yeah, because there was like a jewelry mine back in the day, and then it was shut down for whatever reason. Did that have something to do with Fred's parents? Did they shut the mine down?
Yeah, it had something to do with that because their house was like built on top of the mine.
Yeah, everything kind of comes back to Fred's family as like the reigning capitalists of this town and
They're
kind
at the
of
pinnacle
controlling
of
everything.
the hierarchical power of the town.
Yeah, and so it turns out that like Daphne's parents were actually some of the cave people, and they were running a criminal operation of illegally harvesting the crystals, and they abandoned Daphne as a baby, and that's when her lesbian moms found her.
They found her abandoned in a cave.
Daphne goes through a whole arc of finding her parents, and then they end up just using her and abusing her and leaving her out to dry.
Yeah.
And she realizes that her lesbian moms were right to take her in the first place.
Because her real parents were dicks.
Fred's arc, as we discussed, like he gets put in jail for being framed by Velma for the crimes he did not commit in murdering the girls.
There's a serial killer on the loose.
Yeah, the overarching main plot line is that there's a serial killer on the loose. He's killing girls. He's only killing hot girls, as they find out. And
but why?
Velma's trying to figure out who the serial killer is. She initially frames Fred because it seemed obvious, and she's like, "Oh, he did it, obviously."
He's a white man of privilege. He did it, obviously.
But they find out Fred gets framed in the next fucking episode. Get over it, everybody. There's some funny moments of Fred being in prison and experiencing that. And then he gets out, he becomes a feminist and falls in love with Velma for a few episodes, which is pretty funny. And that kind of culminates in the twist, which is that people have been getting murdered. We get a little bit of backstory on what Velma's mom was researching before she disappeared, which is that she was looking into this scientist who... Oh, the card's almost full. That's right.
It's like, uh-oh. Scary.
All right, 1 second. Sorry for the rude interruption. Had to put a new memory card in the camera.
Well, it wouldn't be an episode of Vic and Hope if we didn't have some sort of technological issue.
Shenanigans. Anyways, where was I? I was talking about the actual plot. Spoiler alert. Okay, yeah. So
Fred.
So, yeah. So the backstory. There was a guy who was it during Vietnam, was doing experiments.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was like
government experiments with
government
like brain
experiments
swapping.
where he was trying to swap brains into like super soldiers or something. Classic government experiment
CIA
shenanigans.
shit.
Yeah,
Just
CIA shit.
CIA things.
So they're working on brain swapping. So that's our backstory of like, oh, brain swapping. So that's going to be relevant to the plot, And so it turns out, all the girls that are being murdered, they've been taking their brains and leaving the bodies.
Yes.
It's like, oh, so they're doing something. Something's going on with the brains,
shenanigans afoot.
So then, eventually, Fred ends up getting kidnapped as well, and he ends up in the lair where the serial killer has been hiding in the emerald mines or whatever. And so he ends up in there, and we find out that the 3 girls who have been murdered so far are now brains in jars and can talk in the jars, and they're alive.
Futurama.
And so this, to me, was like the climax of Fred's character arc, because he had been obsessed with this feminism and the beautiful mind of a woman.
Right. Yeah,
and so
'cause you
he
love
ends
them for
up
their
in a room with 3 brains, which is the most beautiful part of a woman. So he's like, oh, this is perfect. I'm in heaven. And then through him being trapped in here, he ends up having relationships with all 3 of the brains separately. And he's like fucking the brains behind each other's back. And it becomes this whole thing. And to me, that was like his ruining as like his new... Like he's more mature. He's a cultured man, and
He's
then
not obviously changed.
Yeah, he ends up completely fucking all that up, and then
fetishized a different aspect of the woman.
Exactly. He fetishizes a new thing. He fucks it all up with the brains, and they all get mad at him. And then like they kind of abandon Fred having any level of maturity after that, because he kind of reverts to who he was.
He becomes true infant.
And I like the way it came full circle with that arc of like, oh, now let's give him what he wants, the brain.
Literally.
Yeah, but he goes to his debaucherous ways with his brain relationships.
You can lead a horse to water,
but you can't water a horse.
I mean, I guess you could water a horse,
but not like a plant.
No, it's not gonna like photosynthesize.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Anywho, so that, Fred's arc, and then so the brain's in jars. From there, like, eventually Velma finds the lair.
Yes.
Because she tracks her mom had gone to Fred's house, and then they went to the basement.
Yeah.
And then they find but they found a clue in the basement, but they didn't find. Yeah, whatever.
But she went down there and found.
I'm talking about when Velma goes to the house later, because she goes into the basement, but she just finds a clue. She doesn't find everything going on in there, I think.
Yeah, that's not till later, but there's a lot of
Irrelevant,
mystery
irrelevant,
hijinks.
irrelevant. Anyways, so I'm getting to the twist of what actually happens, but you gotta have a little context how to get there. It's basically, the twist is, like, Velma finds her mom in the mines with the brains.
Yes.
The mom has amnesia. She doesn't know what's going on. And so there's an arc of they have to, for whatever reason, the doctor says she has amnesia, and the only way to make her remember her past memories is to keep her happy.
For 72 hours.
For 72 hours. So Velma thinks to keep her happy, she has to put her in a state where nothing has changed since she disappeared.
The status quo of when she left is still present.
Yeah, which leads to shenanigans because Velma's dad immediately moved on and got with another woman who
he impregnated.
Yeah, and he had kind of almost been having an affair with while they were together anyways, and he impregnated her and they have a baby, so it's like, obviously everything has changed and shenanigans ensue.
Of course.
But
and some of those shenanigans are pretty funny.
Yeah. But
that's a pretty good episode.
The resolution of that, Velma's mom goes, I was actually the killer, because she remembers after everything's exposed. She goes, oh, I remember I was the killer.
The serial killer.
She was the serial killer,
which had been hinted at in earlier episodes.
Yes, it felt like to me this was like obviously her mom's the killer, and so I liked the twist in the end because her mom wasn't the killer.
Dun dun dun.
And it recontextualizes everything when you find out who was. Because it turns out that the killer was actually Fred's mom, who was a character that was kind of sleeping in the wings the whole time, which is what her character turns out to be all about. Yes. Is that it explains she played second fiddle to Fred's dad, but it's basically responsible for him being successful in the first place. Yeah. And she was the daughter of the scientist who did the brain swapping experiment. And that guy used hypnosis in his experiments. And so she learned hypnosis from her dad. And so she had been using hypnosis on the other characters the whole time. So when Velma's mom was investigating the brain stuff, she discovered that Fred's mom was the daughter or whatever. So she hypnotized Velma's mom into doing the murders for her, and continuing that research, and then hypnotize Velma to forget everything and to have the hallucinations whenever she starts to investigate it. And so it ties everything together. Everything like, oh, that's why Velma's having all the, and it all comes full circle, and it all works in theme with the overall theme of what was going on. Because Fred's mom's motivation in the end was because she had a son and he's fucking stupid. She wanted to take a capable woman's brain. Particularly, she was looking for someone who was, like, hot and popular and charismatic.
Yeah, she started by wanting a hot girl, because when she was young, she was a hot girl, and even though she was smart and capable, she was always being passed up for men. And so she figured if she took another hot, capable girl, then that young girl would understand that, like, the deck is stacked against her, and she can achieve so much more in a man's body. Yeah. But then she realized that young hot girls don't see that the deck is stacked against them until they get older and their beauty goes away, and then nobody gives a shit about them. But Velma's ugly. Yes. And she's capable. So she's actually the perfect candidate to brain swap into Fred's body, because she has enough animosity to know what she can do with a white man's body and a capable brain.
Which is how she ends on, but she thinks Daphne for a bit too. She almost goes with Daphne because Daphne was like seemed like she would be a good heir. Yeah. But she does end up landing on Velma would be the perfect candidate because Velma is already jaded.
But she also does that matchmaking with Fred and Daphne. So it could be that she was still trying to put Velma's brain into Fred's body and then have them actually get married. True. Yeah. And that would be like a power couple.
Yeah, it would be a power couple. Because she always had to play second fiddle to Fred's dad, who she has had hypnotized the whole time. So Fred's dad has been hypnotized, and has been assisting in all this. So she had been in control the whole time, and it does a great job of bringing everything together in terms of like what the plot and characters were all doing, and all playing into the themes, the feminist themes that the show has built up, and the different elements of like beauty and non-beauty, and the way that these things interact with each other socially, and like it all came full circle in Fred's mom being the killer. And like I like that it had a real catharsis about like, oh, that makes sense, like all of this came together and everything made sense, and all of it feeds into each other in a cool way. And it also plays into like, this is a show that is interested in feminism, you know, it's interested in identities and representation and all these things, but the main bad guy was also a feminist, you know, like interested in feminism, interested in that perspective, but she was a bad example, you know?
Like it's willing to be critical of those ideas where it deserves to.
Where it's like the bad guy in the end wasn't the straight white male, you know? The bad guy wasn't Fred's dad. The bad guy was Fred's mom, who got fucked over by Fred's dad. And that led into interesting commentary, you know? So it's like, you can't write it off as just like being woke bullshit or whatever, because the bad guy in the end wasn't the straight white male, you know?
Exactly.
That wasn't what they were trying to say. Like the motivations of the bad guy were informed and constructed on the basis of the disadvantages women face from the straight white male.
It's based in patriarchy, but it's still wrong.
And that's the best way to commentate on patriarchy and stuff. Is like, what does it drive people to do, you know? What conditions did it construct for Fred's mom to drive her into doing something bad, you know, that feeds into this whole system instead of subverting it, you know? Where it's like, if she really wanted to do something, she just wouldn't have fucking let Fred run the company. It would have encouraged Daphne to take over, you know? Like, that's all she had to do. It's just like, don't let them win, you know? Don't let them fucking win. But she's so... It's so ingrained in her brain that women can't win like without,
won't be allowed.
Without, you have to put a female's brain into a male's body for them to succeed, because it just won't be allowed, you know? Which
there's another really good episode, the Fogfest episode, where they explore that same idea.
Yeah.
Where like Velma goes to, because there's a serial killer murdering all the hot girls, they institute a rule where for the big town festival, Fogfest, in order for a woman to go, she has to have a male date. Which, kind of like real life, if you're going to go outside as a woman, you're either taking a chance or you'd better have someone with you, or else, you know, hey, you deserve whatever happens next.
Yeah.
But it's really funny because obviously Velma does not have a date because she is not hot. So she dresses up as a man and goes, and as she's there, she realizes, oh my God, everyone's like interested in me and is listening to me and is respecting me. This is crazy. And it's like, she's the same person. She's the same asshole she's been the whole show. Yeah. But now people are like, oh, you're so hot. Like the girls are hitting on, like hot girls are hitting on her. People are listening to her when she's spewing her crazy ideas about who the murderer is. Like she's getting all of the attention that, you know, a male would receive if he was the same personality type, but you know, not a woman.
Which is the kind of thing where I think most of the men who don't like this show are going to watch that and they're going to hate it, because they're going to go, oh, that's not how it's actually like, but it's like that. It's not for you. It's for the audience of Velma.
Think about why that bothers you.
Exactly. Think about why that bothers you.
Why do I feel like this is directed at me? Why is this hurting me personally?
Yeah.
The call is coming from inside the house. That's why.
And it's because her personality, you know, she is a non-feminine woman, you know, she is a masculine tomboy.
She's very,
like she doesn't fit into the box of what a woman is, and so society treats her like shit, you know, because she's ugly, and so they write her off because she's not conforming to the standards of what a good woman is. And so when she goes to a man, it's like, oh, well, she does conform to what a good man is, you know?
Well, this is
so it works as that, because everything about her personality works as a man and doesn't work as a woman, you know?
Exactly. They're traditionally masculine accepted behaviors, so when you present masculine, it works in your favor.
Exactly. And then, you know, it's not like they don't turn it into like a trans thing. You know, she doesn't go trans afterwards or anything. It was just like she liked being a guy for a day. It's just
exploring gender politics.
Not that it would have been bad if they did go in that direction. It would have been fine.
Yeah, not that it's a problem.
They didn't go in that direction.
It doesn't.
That wasn't the point they were trying to make.
Yeah, exactly. That's not the point.
Yeah. That was a good one. That was a good episode.
It was a pretty funny episode. There was a lot of... And that episode really leaned into a, like, updated version of the original Scooby-Doo hijinks with, like, all the doors and running back and forth as they're being chased by the killer, running back and forth, the killer disappearing, like, goofy shit like that. And it's contained to the one bit in the episode, and it works, and that's it. They leave it be, and then there it goes.
It didn't overindulge.
It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's just like, oh yeah, ha.
What else do I have to say about this show?
Oh yeah, and Daphne has a Hex Girls poster in her room.
Nice.
So
good call out. See,
who sits here and says these people hate Scooby-Doo?
Yeah.
Why would she have a Hex Girls poster if they hate Scooby-Doo?
Yeah.
Come on now.
And it is all this to say, like, it's not. I'm not trying to say it's a fucking 10 out of 10 amazing show. You know? It's just like it has its merits, and it was fun. I wasn't bored. You know, I was way more bored watching The Last of Us. Controversial opinion, but like
it's it's more entertaining to me than The Last of Us.
I found it perfectly entertaining. I wouldn't say it's as good as Harley Quinn.
No.
Maybe that puts us in a box.
Harley Quinn has way better writing.
Yes, Harley Quinn is much better writing, but it's going for similar appeal. It's going for similar, very feminine, very gay appeal. You know, in its humor and its writing.
It's much
which
more
is not
successful
for everyone. You know.
Yeah, but
that's part of what I'm saying.
That demographic
way
better.
It hits the demographic better for sure. It definitely does a better job, but
because we also watched season 2 of Harley Quinn.
Well,
and
season
Poison Ivy.
4, right? Isn't it 3 or 4?
No.
That wasn't season 2.
You sure?
Yeah.
You sure?
It's been a few seasons. That was not season 2.
I think that's season 2. You sure?
It's at least season 3.
Maybe it's season 3.
There's been a few. Anyway, and there was a Valentine's Day special.
There was a Valentine's Day special, but that's not a whole season. But yes, of course, Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy is a way better show.
Yeah.
It hits way more. It's way funnier. The characters are way better. But all of this, the whole point of this whole meandering, nonsensical event was just to say that it's not fair to call Velma the worst cartoon ever made.
Yeah,
it's
people really blew it out of proportions, and I do think it has its merits. And it's not right. I'll watch another season, and I'm excited to watch another season. I want to see what they do with it.
I'll watch season 2 of Velma. I don't give a fuck.
Partially because of the way that so they allude to certain things in the last episode where Fred discovers the mystery machine, essentially, which actually was Velma's mom's van. And it had been, like, stolen all this time, essentially, and then Fred ends up with the van. And it was like, they set that up in the very beginning of, like, this is where the van's gonna come from. They bring it through, and then Fred paints the flowers on the van because that's, like, his family's logo. And it's, like, certain stuff, in certain contexts, I hate when stuff is over-explained, where it's like, oh, why do we have to know what the flowers are on the van? But they did it in a way where I felt like it was fine.
That you're like, yeah, all right.
And then he, at the end, is starting his mystery-solving, agency that he starts at the end. It's like, okay, so this is where we're going with that. Norville's dad is a therapist, and Norville is talking to his dad in the end about all his stress and everything, and then his dad goes, son, have you tried marijuana? And he's like, and so it's like, okay, so clearly next season he's gonna have his big weed arc, and he's gonna become the Shaggy that we know. That's what it's been building up to. It was very obvious it was gonna go in that direction. So maybe after that they'll introduce Scooby-Doo or something. I don't know.
Well, and the other thing I feel like they didn't have to do this, but the name of that brain swapping experiment, acronym spelled Scooby.
That one I thought was a little too much, because then it's like,
we get it.
It ruins the, okay, but like later you think they're probably gonna find Scooby. Like I would hope that would be like the end of the series, is they get Scooby, and why would they name it after this?
Yeah, then I'm like, well, then
program?
why would they?
Unless Velma comes back and says like, we'll name it after the first mystery we saw.
Yeah, I
Scooby,
could see that.
you know.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, all that to say, Velma, it's not the worst cartoon ever made.
It's not that bad.
It's pretty alright, actually.
It's pretty alright.
Sometimes it's funny.
That might be the title of the video. Velma, it's pretty alright. It's not that bad.
Sometimes I actually laughed.
Yes,
Which
I
is
did genuinely laugh a couple times.
more than I can say for a lot of comedy cartoons.
It was what won me over was Fred becoming a feminist. And
It was really good.
Like one of the lines in there gave me a genuine laugh, and I was like, okay, it's fine. This show is fine. And that was like episode 3, you know.
Yeah. I mean, of all the things we've hate watched, very few of them have actually made me laugh. And this did start as a hate watch. The trailer, awful. I hated
remember
it.
watching,
I was ready to dunk on it, you know?
Bastard on Netflix. It's just fucking terrible. It's an anime, not a cartoon, but God,
it's really bad.
It's so bad.
It's very
not even for the reasons you think we would say that for. It's just boring and awful.
It is just boring.
It's mostly boring. It's not raunchy enough.
That's the problem.
It's like, God, if this were just porn, it would be so much better.
It just touts itself as being so raunchy, and it's not.
God, terrible.
Jesus Christ, I mean, fucking Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy is raunchier than Bastard.
I also felt like with Velma, they might have been still working on some of the later episodes when it started airing, because there's some comments in the later episodes about the quality of the show and its reception that I caught. Oh. Where it kind of makes a couple jokes about, like, being a show on TV and how impossible it is to please people. Like, I caught a couple of those in the end where it was a little sad. I was like, okay, so I think they might have wrote these last couple episodes with that reception and been like, oh yeah, everyone's gonna give a shit for this. Yeah. They were clearly not happy with the way it was received, you know.
Definitely.
I imagine there's a disconnect between the marketing department and the creators in terms of their approach to selling the series.
I would say so.
Yeah. Can't really blame the writers all the time for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, definitely some cringe, a little bit of cringe, but
bit
also
cringe.
a little bit of good.
Yeah. Yeah. They thought they were going to get the big upset people appeal. Not always successfully did they do that, but that's all our thoughts on Velma.
I would say...
I hope you enjoyed our thoughts. I can't wait for the comments on this fucking video. People that didn't watch it commenting bullshit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you haven't watched past episodes 3,
we're such a tiny,
forbidden to comment.
We're a tiny channel,
and
we'll get like
find
10
us.
comments, but there will be the ones that just totally don't get any of what we're talking about.
Yeah,
or it just people who don't even watch the
not
video
interested in
react to
being
just the title of the thumbnail. We've had that on a lot of stuff, you know, not being charitable. Maybe they'll make it this far in the video and be like, we still hate you for having opinions.
Can we do a bait thumbnail for this?
Yeah,
where I'm like yelling at you, or like we're fighting about if we think Velma's good. I think I really laughed too much.
You gotta do like you have to like it. Do that like a Reeg SJW
Oh,
face.
like a how's the reeing liberal? Lala is here. Lala, help.
Once again,
hold her hostage.
Leftist with cat. Here is my cat.
There she is.
You like it because you are a left-wing person on the internet.
And she's the cutest cat.
And she is a cute cat.
She's so precious.
Oh wait, here we go. Alright, that's enough.
I just want to crush her little bones.